Hey everyone, if you're just with us, we'll start momentarily. We're just waiting for folks to join us in the virtual space. If you're already here, welcome. All right, we'll go ahead and dive in. Hi everyone, I'm Julia with Politics in Prose. We're live with Erika L. Sánchez and Sandra Cisneros discussing Crying in the Bathroom, which they're both holding up gorgeously right now. You can find a link in the chat column to get a copy directly from us at Politics in Prose. We'd also like to thank our partners Books and Café con Libros. If you have a question for our speakers, please use the Q&A feature at the bottom of your screen. We'll move to questions in the last portion of the hour, though we apologize in advance if we run short on time to get to all of them. Additionally, we're glad to offer closed captioning for this event via Zoom's auto captioning service. To enable captions for the webinar, click on the CC live transcript icon at the bottom of your screen. Let's get to this great new book. In her new book of essays, Sánchez writes about everything from sex to white feminism to debilitating depression, revealing an interior life rich with ideas, self-awareness, and perception. Raunchy, insightful, unapologetic, and brutally honest, this book is Sánchez at her best and will make you feel that post-confessional high that comes from talking for hours with your best friend. The author is a Mexican-American poet, novelist, and essayist. Her debut poetry collection, Lessons on Expulsion, was a finalist for the PEN America Open Book Award. Her debut young adult novel, I Am Not Your Perfect Mexican Daughter, was a New York Times bestseller and a National Book Awards finalist, and is now being made into a film directed by America Ferrera. And with us also is Sandra Cisneros, a poet, fiction writer, essayist, performer, and artist. Her most recent book is Martita, I Remember You, /Martita Te Recuerdo, a story in English and Spanish. Woman Without Shame, her first new collection of poetry in almost 30 years, will be published in September. We will keep our eyes open for that. But enough from me at this point. On behalf of Politics in Prose, please join me in giving a warm virtual welcome to Erika L. Sánchez and Sandra Cisneros. Thank you both so much for being here.
Thank you. What an honor. I'm really geeked to be speaking to one of my literary heroes. It's quite surreal.
This is cool, right? Because like I'm 30 years older than you. I was like shocked when I learned your age. I thought, what? She's a huerca, una huerquita. She's just
huerquita, I love that word. It's such a
yeah, huerca is like, how would you translate huerca?
Because like, I don't think you can translate huerca, actually. It's like a young person with no experience, like a pipsqueak, perhaps.
No, it's not that mean. It's like youthful. It's like, you know, like
no, huerca. I like the word. I'm not offended.
Yeah, it's very slangy, like, you know, well, I don't know if there's a parallel. We'd have to like work on that for a long time.
Yeah,
but I digress. Let's get back to you. I want to talk about you. And I know you're on a book tour, and we were talking just before we got started about book tours, but can you explain like where you've been and what a book tour is for people that think it's glamorous?
I suppose parts can be glamorous, but it's also very challenging, as you and I have discussed. How to stay nourished, how to stay hydrated is a challenge, you know. I have been to a couple of cities recently. I was in LA. I gave a speech there, and then now that the book is out, I am here in New York. Did an event yesterday, had one in Chicago. I'm going to San Francisco. So like, I'm going to several different cities. The full list is on my website if anyone is curious. And it involves, you know, reading from my book and talking to people about what it's like to be a writer in some ways, but also just connecting with readers and really like showing gratitude. That's what it is for me. Like I really care so much that so many people have shown up for this, and it makes me teary-eyed to think about it, you know.
It's the opposite of being a writer, though.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Okay, well, explain.
Well, you know, you're giving so much of yourself, you know, that you don't have any energy for the page. And so this is just part of the career of it, right? To me, writing is my true joy. And that's what makes me feel alive and nourished. And it like makes me think in very deep ways. And so that to me is the romantic part, you know. The touring is just kind of the job, you know, and it's nice in many different ways, but it's also a grind.
Well, I think this is the thing, you know, we become writers because we're introverted.
Right.
And we have to be like, like jazz hands and
It's work.
And it's work, but it has a lot of blessings because we meet the people who buy our books and they nourish us with the stories they tell us.
Oh yeah, for
I
sure.
learned a lot from like my literary mentors, Eduardo Galeano and Gwendolyn Brooks. You know, she always treated the people who came to her readings like if she was their fan.
Oh,
And
I love that.
that's good advice for authors to remember that
Yeah.
you are, imagine the reverse, that you are the people who are attending, you are their fan. And
Yeah. I mean, I feel like such immense gratitude, you know, it's overwhelming as a sensitive person. I'm like, oh my God, overload, you know, but it's a beautiful feeling, and I am incredibly grateful for you know, all the people who support it and who like show me love. I was just talking to a friend about how as a little brown girl, I didn't feel loved. I didn't feel like anyone understood me. And you have talked about this similarly about how you're invisible as a brown child, and especially when you're a girl. And now I have all this like love and support from so many different people. I can't believe it. It's so intense.
does it make you cry in the bathroom?
Not in the bathroom. I cried in the street like just 40 minutes ago,
Me
actually.
too. It's like unbelievable. It's like poetic justice of the universe for all the traumas you've lived. Yes, I'm 67 and I still cry in public, in the bathroom, in bed, everywhere, because I think, wow, I'm living my life dream.
Mhm.
How did that happen? And there isn't a day, even at 67, that I'm not astonished. It's such a blessing.
I
No,
love it. Yeah,
that gets me for my first question, actually. You know, but go ahead. I'm sorry.
no. I was just gonna say I never want to stop being astonished. You know, like every day I want to do that. I want to be like, wow, my life is amazing.
Well, you know, if you stop being astonished, then you stop having gratitude. And we need to have that gratitude. But that brings me to my first question. You thought all the rest were my first questions, but they're not. I'm from Chicago. You're from Cicero. It's one of the most unpoetic places on earth, I know. How do you become a poet coming from Cicero, Illinois?
Oh my God. That's very funny because it's true. It's a very bleak and sometimes hopeless looking town. And I used to hang out in parking lots, with my friends because there was nowhere for us to go. We didn't know how to like hang out somewhere and feel comfortable because our parents were like really strict or what have you. And so like there was nothing for young people. It's hard to dream there when there aren't opportunities presented to you. And I think I had to just escape in a sense through books. And I started reading very early on, and I became like an insatiable reader, and I wanted to know everything about everything. And when I came upon your work, for instance, I felt like it was possible to be a poet. It was a career or a vocation, a path that I could have. And so it really changed the way that I saw things. I always tried to find beauty in all the brokenness and all the ugliness and all like the strife. I wanted to find, transcendence in that. And that's how I survived, essentially.
Well, I know a little bit of your life from reading your poetry and reading your young adult novel and now reading this memoir. But how does someone who comes from a house in Cicero, where did you get your books?
I stole them.
And you stole them from school? Or there was no bookstores in my neighborhood except Gigi's Exotic Books, which was for adults. So I know your neighborhood because I've got a parallel universe. So
Yes.
where did you get your books?
So there was a bookstore in North Riverside Park Mall that had a bookstore. Yeah, it had, the classics. And so I started going there and then putting things inside my coat when I would go to the mall because I really wanted to read and I didn't.
Did you get caught?
No, I never got caught.
Good.
Yeah, it was quite risky, but I felt kind of entitled to it. I said to myself, like, you're entitled to knowledge. And so
Did you ever hear of the Chicago Public Library?
Oh, well, I couldn't always go to Chicago. I didn't live in Chicago. I lived in Cicero. And so it was really just inconvenient. And then also the Cicero Public Library, they were so hostile towards children of color in particular. And so
Cicero is people of color.
it is, but at the time there were so many white racists that resided there, and I just didn't feel. I mean, I would go there, but I didn't spend a lot of time there.
Wow, and that's like so the opposite of me, because my mom, before I knew how to hold a pencil, she had me in the library. And I got a car before I knew how to read, so it's just like completely the opposite. I owe my career to the Chicago Public Library. I never saw a bookstore till I was an adult. I thought books were so valuable that they were only dispensed to libraries and schools. I didn't know people could own books. And here you were stealing books.
I was.
And you mentioned, some writers in your book, in your memoir, and I want to know, who are your literary ancestors? I mean, how does a poor girl, this is still amazing to me, a poor girl from like Cicero, how did you become a writer?
Well, honestly, when I read Edgar Allan Poe for the first time, I think that's when I realized I want to be a poet. And I felt so like in love with the sound of the language. And I also felt really seen by like the despair that he described. And so I really became enamored with his work. And from then, one of my teachers, she said that she wanted to publish my poem in a magazine because it was so good. And it never happened, but it gave me this illusion that I was, I had this skill, that I had a talent. And ever since then, I felt like that was my path.
And how old were you when this happened?
I was 12.
Machu Picchu, I was 11.
Oh my God, wow.
The great teachers, right? Somebody working there who just took the time to believe in us and transformed us.
It means everything.
Wow. It means a lot. There's wonderful teachers and wonderful librarians out there.
There are.
We shout out to them, and we ask that we melt down the racist statues and melt them and put up statues to librarians and teachers. That's what I say. And take the salary away from the Pentagon and give it to the teachers in the library.
I agree.
Right? And you were one, but don't you feel like when you go back, and I don't know if you go back to Cicero,
I do.
Think, where are the other writers? Doesn't that break your heart?
It does. I think about, where are the girls? What are they doing? Are they crying in their room? Are they,
cutting themselves like you did?
Yeah. I mean, it's really hard when you live in a patriarchal house, and when you have no resources and no choices, like what do you do with yourself? It's really exasperating in many
Wow.
ways.
You had it much rougher than I did because my father was an upholsterer, but he would bring me, he would steal, I didn't know that then, drawing pencils from the Winnetka, a firm of interior decorating that he worked for, and bring home big pieces of brown paper that was used for wrapping the pillows and the furniture. And we would all make murals and draw. And, we had this creativity, and my mom drew. And my father would bring us like paper and these lovely pencils from
Mhm.
work, and we just had a lot of creativity. We had no money, but in your story, I don't think your mom got you.
No, not at all whatsoever. And so I think that was partly because I was so independent, and I wanted to be the person that I was no matter what. And I didn't want to hide who I was. And it was a problem, for a girl to be so assertive and to demand so much. Like that's we just don't do that in our culture. And
Your mom was born in Mexico.
she was, yeah. And, I think a lot about how she was very bold in that she decided to cross the border. That was her idea. She wanted a better life. And, and then I want a better life. And so like, we're alike in some ways. And I wish that she, took some pride in that fact that she made this really hard choice and was brave and did it anyway. And yeah, I think that our mothers oftentimes have so much trauma, and it really like affects how we see ourselves. And I know you have had a similar experience. And I remember seeing your installation at the Mexican Museum of Art, and it was so heartbreaking to me because I felt so similar.
Yeah.
I felt seen by that.
Te da ganas llorar, really you feel like crying when you look at the talent and brains our mothers had in that generation. And, no choice about reproduction, no choice about like, can they get up and leave? No, one of the great things my mother taught me, which I always share with younger writers, is earn your own money, because everybody and your family will be saying, don't go that route. And one of the main things for young artists is earn your own money so that you can control your life. That's number one.
Oh
So I
yeah.
always say that. My mom taught me that. And I think she felt stuck in her marriage, even though my father was a nice guy, but she was way smarter than him. So I was lucky in that my mom was not born in Mexico. You're dealing with a culture clash with your mother.
Yeah, very much so. Yeah. I think it's really important also to make your own money as a woman, because you have control over your life. You have choices. You don't depend upon anyone. And I made myself like be independent for many reasons, but partly because I didn't want a man to tell me how to live. And now that I am in charge of my own life, because I make my own money, and I have choices, it feels like so liberating. It's so different. And it brings me to the issue of abortion. I think for me, you know, terminating a pregnancy was a way to preserve myself and also to have the kind of life that I planned for myself. Like I felt that, you know, if I would have continued the pregnancy, I would have disappeared. And I didn't want that for myself. And that's why I'm so upset about this reversal of Roe v. Wade, because there's so many women who are thinking about, you know, terminating a pregnancy, and they don't know how. They don't know. They don't have any resources, and it's really a violation of human rights.
You know what? That's my number 2 advice to write. Control your fertility, whether you're male or female, because you can just detour off your brilliant career. So important. I made that choice when I was 30 because I knew I was going to be a single mom. I didn't want to move back to Chicago. I'd worked really hard to get out of my father's house. I made a choice. Okay, I'm going to have books and not children. So you've got to control your fertility. That's not something our mother's generation had. And that brings me to a very important part of your book, talking so honestly about having an abortion. Which is so relevant for us to see this in print at this time in US history.
Yeah, it's unfortunate that it's so timely. I wish that it weren't the case. And, I didn't even consider that this was a possibility. And so, talking about my abortion now feels very urgent. It's not the same as before. It's something that I think we all need to start doing, telling stories about why abortion is important. And I hate that we have to do this. I hate that we have been forced to defend our right to something that should just be a given. And so I really feel right now that we have to fight this in any way that we can, because to take someone's choices away from them is to take their humanity away from them. And so I wrote about this, not envisioning a ban on abortion. I thought it was a pressing issue, and I felt like it was something very important to my life. And so yeah, the coincidence of this happening at the same time is quite terrible. I hate it.
But at least you can talk about it and enlighten other women about the issue. So that's a great thing about seeing it. There's so many things in the memoir that I wrote in the margin. Me too. Oh, so did I. And there was so much.
When I read your essays, I was like, wait a minute.
I know. It was like, did you steal this from me? Did you think? It's like there's so many parallels, even though we're 30 years apart. But I want to there's a couple of things I want to ask you, and we're kind of jumping ahead. And one of the things I want to talk about that you talk about so splendidly in your memoir is about taking control of our bodies. And this is part of the dialogue of what you're saying, but it's also about educating ourselves about our bodies, which is something as a Mexican daughter I never saw my mother nude. She never explained to me, why I was getting a period. She didn't tell me it was going to end. I thought it was going to be a viejita having to wear a tampon. And I didn't get to wear a tampon still. I was out of the house. Yeah. So much stuff. And you talk about the Chicago Women's Clinic. To me, the Emma Goldman clinics, I got to put a shout out to them, and to Planned Parenthood that had a sliding scale. And, I used to go to the little trailer when I had very little money over on South Presa in San Antonio. That's why I'm such a big supporter of Planned Parenthood. But a lot of it is our mothers and sex, and the sex and the shame that they brought with it, so that we didn't know anything, So can you talk about that? Let's talk about our inheritance of cochinadas. Cochinahood maybe would be, they think that if we talk about this, it's like being a cochina, being.
Yeah, no, we're very vulgar people right now. But a lot of us grew up with this idea that your privates were dirty, that you shouldn't ever touch yourself, that you shouldn't look at yourself, that when learning about sex, I felt like, from what I had gathered, it was that the man just kind of inserted, and that you just received. And so I felt as if
more than I did.
Oh, I mean, I didn't know for a long time. Eventually I learned these things, but it was this sensibility that your body was just unclean, it was dirty. And
how can you enjoy sex with that kind of education?
You can't.
Right?
You can't.
You can't. No. And you write about that. in one of the opening chapters.
Yes.
Incredible chapter. I said, oh my God, it's so great to have a chapter written in a memoir, so frankly, about our sexual parts, where even women are ashamed to say vagina. Even that's like, people make little play names, like Oprah makes little play names. Like, no, we have to call it what it is. Why do we have to be ashamed of our private parts? Even the names for it, panocha and, papaya, all these stupid, yeah, tortas, whatever they want to call it. But por favor, come on,
Yeah, it's so disrespectful, like.
Yeah, it's kind of like it's silly too, like men who give their penis a name. Why would we want to be that silly? Yeah, no lo entiendo, but I just like to say things like panocha. That's a good word. I like to say it out loud now. Say it loud. I just like it. And I put it in my poetry now because I'm a woman without shame. But I also feel as if it's a way that I'm striking back at the church and my mother's generation.
Yes.
And everybody else that has made us feel bad just because we have a vagina. And I love that you put pudendum in a poem. I was jealous. I should put that word in a poem.
I think you should.
I'll dedicate it to you. Okay. I just love it. We need to reclaim ourselves and not be ashamed and not give it little baby names. Come on.
Yeah.
Sing like Walt Whitman. We have to have a song for the uterus, and a song for the pudendum, and a song for the vagina. All these things are natural parts of us, and they're really beautiful and wonderful. And I think we need to celebrate it. I love that when you were in the Chicago Women's Clinic that they put a mirror so you could see your cervix. I got that experience in the Emma Goldman Clinic in Iowa City.
Yeah, it was startling. I had never even considered to do such a thing.
To put a mirror there, only white girls did that. Mexican girls couldn't do that. One, we didn't have a bedroom with a door in my house.
Mine didn't close.
I had a bedroom door, but it didn't close. You had a bedroom door that didn't close?
Yeah.
At least you had a bedroom, your mother and father would say, right?
Yeah, of course.
They didn't want the door to close, right?
They were not trying to fix that. They were not.
No. But some girls do not have a room. They sleep on the couch or they sleep with other children, as I did when I was younger. So these are all kind of class issues, which brings me to my next question. I so love that you talk about money, because one of the things when I would read bio notes when I was a young unpublished writer, I would look at the back flap and the first thing I was like, how does she make her money?
Mm-hmm.
And then it would say, so-and-so lives in Connecticut and she's and she has boo-boo and, Linus. I don't want to hear about boo-boo and Linus. How did she make her money so she could make this? That's a lot of hours to be by yourself. That's what I want to know. That's why when I wrote my bio note, I asked my students, I was teaching at Ann Arbor that time, I said, what do you want to know? And one of the things they want to know too is, how does she have the time? How does she make her money? How is it possible that she could spend all these hours? And, that's what we want to know as working class and as in the barrio, no?
Yeah, no, I would read books and be like, how did she go to Europe? Like, what happened? It wasn't like, it wasn't explained. It wasn't, it was as if we were supposed to just understand that these people had enough money to go to a place like that. And so it's frustrating to me. I didn't get it. And
I had enough money to go to Indiana. Exactly. I was so broke. And the only time I went anywhere was with the family, to Mexico. So it was like, and then of course you mentioned that you saw the movies, and that's where you got the idea that a writer travels.
Yeah, and from you, honestly.
Well, I met 2 Mexican women when I was traveling alone, and it was unbelievable. Only 2, and they always were leaving like the next day, so I didn't get to hang with them very much. But it was so incredible for me. And when I got the first check for my NEA, the first big check, I bought a one-way ticket from New York to Athens. It was the scariest thing I ever did. I had nightmares. I had nightmares that I'd be on the tram in Athens and I couldn't speak Greek and I would miss my stop and I didn't know where to go. That was like my big fear. But I said, I'm going to do it because one day I'm going to get on a plane, go someplace where I can't even tell which is the women's bathroom and which is the men's. I want to not be afraid. And guess what? I do that now. So more power to you. Talk about traveling and being a woman writer alone.
Yeah, well, you know, at 14, someone gave me your book, My Wicked, Wicked Ways. And I think there was another book.
Yeah, it was My Wicked, Wicked Ways. I had the travel poems.
Right. And I started to read that and I realized that this was a possibility. I was like, oh, because I always wanted to travel. I wanted to see everything. I was like,
where did you get that idea?
To travel?
Yeah. Where did someone from Cicero get that idea?
You know, I don't remember exactly how I pieced it together, but I knew that I wanted to like go to different kinds of places because I felt like I wanted to get far away from where I was and experience something new and meet people who thought differently and whatever. And so when I started to read your book, I was like, first of all, she is having like all of these love affairs that sound really exciting, maybe kind of painful, but very exciting. And also she's like doing it in these like beautiful romantic places. And it just kind of like filled me with a sort of wonder and excitement. And I remember I said to my brother at around that time that I wanted to travel the world. And he's like, and how are you going to do it? With what money? You know, like he had all these like practical questions.
This is the thing you have to do. And I'm going to tell you all, everyone listening out there, and especially you children, first put the idea in your third eye. See it. Walk towards it. If people are going to laugh at you, don't say it out loud, but keep it alive there. And that's what I did in 6th grade. And I saw a book with my name on the spine. I didn't tell anybody. And I walked towards it. And we need to give children in middle school permission to dream big.
Yeah.
And good lucky, as my mother would say, that you did it for yourself. Que bueno, you didn't listen to your brother. That's why I didn't say it out loud. I have 6 brothers. I was no fool. I wasn't going to have to destroy my dream. I just kept it to him. That's when it begins. You know, you see what you want. Maybe you get the idea from some stupid television show or movie, but that's how you make reality. That's what Buddhism teaches us. It begins with a thought.
Right. Yeah, and we're both Buddhists.
How did that happen?
I don't know. I really don't. I think, well, actually, here's my theory. I think that Buddhism is so in line with feminism and poetry. And I think that Buddhism teaches us to look at the macrocosm and the microcosm. And so we do the same in poems, and they're naturally in line with one another. And it was really fun to write about like how Buddhism and poetry are similar. But I mean, that's my theory, but you can explain if you'd like.
No, I was really delighted to see that you were a Buddhist as well. I came to it from a completely different kind of Buddhism, from Thich Nhat Hanh, and writing and being peace changed my life. I had to think of one book that absolutely changed my life. It was Being Peace. And it came to me from my friend who was visiting from Bosnia when I was teaching at Berkeley. And she bought me a book at a bookstore that is no longer there on Valencia Street. It was called Old Wives' Tales. And when we came out, you know, I had this baggage about religion. So when she gave it to me, I thought, oh no, she gave me a religious book. I don't want this. I said, what is this? I remember I said that, like if she was giving me something, like, what is this? And she said, oh, it looks interesting. And I thought, oh, I don't want to send my friend. So, okay, thanks, Jasna. But I didn't read it until the war in Bosnia started. And it literally fell off a shelf. the day before I had to give a speech. Yes, I was like looking for something to inspire me to help me write a speech for International Women's Day during the middle of the Bosnian War. And I was asked to write about Bosnia because I was the only person anyone knew who had lived in Bosnia. And that book, I had been like a real badass, like, say a lot of words and cut everybody up. It really taught me that the way to be for peace is to be peace. Like if you want peace in the Ukraine, you can't be fighting with your mom. I'm sorry, no.
Oh no.
No, yeah, or you can't be fighting with that other right across town. No. It is like if you want peace, you have to be peace. That's major. And like and Thich Nhat Hanh was a poet who died this year, but left an incredible legacy of hundreds of books in different languages. And if you have a lot of religious baggage, I suggest you read Being Peace. It's a poetic prose and it's a good place to begin, but that's how my path began. I was so delighted to see it helps you to heal and become whole. And this is the thing Thich Nhat Hanh says, that we take all of our negative emotions, we start with our small self, our angry, snarling, mean self, and we compost it. And we compost it with a sitting meditation, or in our case, writing. And we begin with the ugly self, and from the banana peels and coffee grounds and dead, rotten, stinky leaves, from that mud, a little seed is going to grow and a little white flower will bloom. And that's how you know you're done.
I love that metaphor.
Yeah, Nhat Hanh said that, but I think it's he talked about meditation, but for us as writers, our meditation hall is our office, and our composting is the pages of the series of writing. No?
Yeah, definitely. To me, writing is spiritual. It's beyond, a job, a vocation, a passion. Even it's something that I need to survive. And so
you said that in the book. I have a beautiful quote from you. I don't believe in God, but I do believe in transcendence. That's so lovely. Explícame, explain.
Oh, I don't believe in like the idea of a God who intervenes in our lives, who dictates the way that we live. And I don't believe in a God who would, be angry. That one is very puzzling to me. That sounds incredibly oppressive, to believe in something like that. And so to me, transcendence is like finding God in yourself, like that poem from Ntozake Shange said, you find God within you, you find you find power in nature, in in the beauty that surrounds us. And so that's really what I revere. I don't revere like a man in the sky, because that to me is really oppressive.
Yeah, I know a lot of people like myself had a lot of baggage, so it was hard to come to anything. And if anyone was going to open a door for me, it would be a poet, and that was Thich Nhat Hanh. Just amazing. And one of the things that I love in your memoir is the voyage you take us through of your traumas and your discovery of Buddhism, and how it made you heal your relationship with your mom. Can you talk about that?
Yeah, so I've been thinking so much about ancestors, and I had this really beautiful moment recently in the spring, in which I was walking through the park and I was thinking about all the women who came before me, and why I am who I am. And I realized that all the women that came before me are with me. I am them, and this moment of realization made me cry. And I started to think so much about the sorts of traumas that my ancestors have endured. And, of course, my mother, what she's endured. And I started to feel like such compassion for her, compassion that I didn't really have previously, and also becoming a mother and understanding how hard it is to be a mother. And, you know, thinking about how difficult it must have been for my mom to raise us, to work at a factory, to do all the cooking and cleaning, you know. And so I have like this immense empathy for her, because I can't even imagine doing that. I can't. And so when I saw that, when I saw her struggle in that way, I said to myself, this is not how I'm going to live. I will not. And so that's what happened. That's part of like what motivated me.
Wow. Wow. I wanted to ask you about your frankness in talking about depression, because I also have dealt with depression, and something that most writers don't talk about so candidly, and you take us there in the memoir. Can you talk about that with us?
I think most writers are incredibly sensitive people, and fragile at times. And I think that we don't always have the capacity to see all of the injustice in the world, to see the sorrow, the beauty, and then to feel, you know, in a cheerful mood the next day. You know, we think a lot about how other people live, and we think a lot about what is going on in the world, and it's really tough. And so that's contributed definitely to my depression, as well as just having a predisposition to it. And I felt that in writing about it, I was liberating something within myself, because I had read some memoirs about bipolar disorder before, but it was like written by a white woman. And so like I wanted to speak to those brown girls who are struggling with depression, because it's so common for us. And I it's something that I've grappled with my entire life, and I've been able to finally seek treatment that worked. And I want people to know about that as well, you know, that there is a way out of it. But yeah, we just pay attention so much, so closely to everything, that I think sometimes it's just very painful.
But you gave people courage by documenting this to search for a therapist, to go to a psychiatric, where all the stuff that we don't learn as working class people, you know, we had people that are, that's a father, está loca, you know, and then people drink or are violent, or I used to know a woman who never got out of bed, and her children were hungry. They would come down to our house to get breakfast, get food. Mom wouldn't wake up till 5 p.m. And, you know, when you're a little kid, you don't understand it. But, you know, I would see, you know, I've written about people who are not all there in House on Mungo Street. And I have relatives who have been called locas. And now as an adult, I say, that woman was grieving the death of her child. That woman was sexually abused. You can see that now. But we don't talk about that when we come from homes, because our parents are so exhausted. It's like, you know, not
allowed, you know, like you don't have the.
And I was ashamed when I was depressed, because my mom had such a harder life. I remember calling my mom to say goodbye to her before I killed myself. And I had it all planned out. And I called my mom. I said, you know, Ma, I'm depressed. And she said, depressed? What are you depressed about? I had 7 kids. And I was like, okay, bye, Ma. and then later on, though, she came through. My mom came through, and I have to thank NEA, because I didn't have a permanent address. And my mom saw me when I came home for Christmas, and I just came home on a fluke. And she said, there's a letter from Washington, D.C., and I think it's good news. So she knew in a way. And it was $20,000 that saved my life. And I say it over and over, thank you, National Endowment for the Arts. It wasn't just giving me some money. It was someone saying, you know, you're worthwhile, even though you can't earn your living with your writing, we believe in you. And sometimes we just need that as artists, no?
We do. And it's hard when you're brown and you're poor and you feel like you don't belong anywhere and you're just trying to, you know, make a life for yourself. And it's overwhelming, you know. I try to tell my students that it's possible to live the way that they want and that they don't have to subscribe to some sort of path that
you can ask for something off the menu. You don't have to just get what's on the menu.
Yes, that's a good analogy. I like that.
I also, before we open it up to the audience, because I know they're all waiting there, because I want to ask questions. Sandra's taking all that time. I want to talk to Erika. Well, the thing I want to say about moms is when we're young, all we can see is what they didn't do for us and made us suffer. But then when you get older, you start saying what they did, not what they didn't do. And that makes you feel ashamed and to forgive. That's all I want to end with, moms. You want to say something?
No, I like that. I've been, you know, going through a lot of, you know, shifts with my mother, and I think it's a good perspective to have. And
my mom said I was nicer to get along with once I became Buddhist.
Oh. My mom was actually really happy that I was Buddhist because I had like a spiritual path, you know. Yeah. She was very supportive, in fact.
Pobrecita. All right, here's Julia back to help us guide the questions to us, or to you, rather. I'm just here to throw a little
questions for both of you. And I apologize to our audience. I do look like a ghost. My Zoom is not adapting well to the light here, but I'll do my best to get to as many questions. This audience is phenomenal. We have so many. I'll try and combine as many as I can. But again, apologies if we don't get to all of them.
If we don't get to all of them, Erika, do you have a website or an Instagram where they can ask you the questions?
Yeah, I do.
All right, well, there you go.
All right, so you heard it here first, folks. If we don't get to your questions, write to Erika, write to Sandra. Here we go. We have two questions around vulnerability. One from Adrian, who writes, from your debut poetry book to your first fiction novel, which is being adapted, and I'm auditioning for again, wow, to now a memoir, have you taken a step back and realized how much your life has changed, especially with being vulnerable with an audience in a memoir? And they write that their copy comes Saturday. And then similarly, an anonymous attendee writes, Erika, the characters in I Am Not Your Perfect Mexican Daughter helped me through the toughest time in my life. I cannot wait to read your memoir. What power do you find through vulnerability in writing? So sort of that question around what is it like to reveal so much about yourself?
Yeah, the thing is that I care so much about the truth that I am willing to reveal parts of myself to get to that end. And I feel like being vulnerable is the only way I know how to write. Otherwise, what's the point? That's how I feel. Like I can't do it if I hold back. It feels wrong. It feels like there's something like stuck in my body. And so vulnerability for me means that I am inviting the reader to feel what I have felt. And I want there to be a connection between the reader and me. And so I think it could really transform someone's life when they see that someone like them has gone through something similar. And so, you know, when I read Sandra's work, I felt that way. I felt like, oh my God, I'm a valid person, you know, because I could see, I mean, not literally, that's not what I thought, but that was the essence, that I could see that someone like me is in a book, you know, and that person is flawed, you know. I think it's much more interesting to be flawed than it is to be perfect.
Here is a follow-up to that from Cynthia, who writes, Erika, I Am Not Your Perfect Mexican Daughter was the first book I'd read that actually depicted and named depression in a young Latina. Depression is often dismissed as a choice or something that can be prayed away in my experience in the Mexican community. Did you face invalidation of these concepts after your book was published?
It didn't so much come after. I mean, it was something I lived, that this idea that depression was some privileged nonsense, that you don't have the right to be sad because I work so much harder than you and you don't know how lucky you are, you know, like that's something that I experienced as a young person. But when the book came out, I didn't get that sort of response. In fact, the response that I got the most was, thank you for writing about this because I feel seen. This is really validating, and it changed my life because I started to go to therapy or whatever. And that to me is worth all the work and the emotional work and also the writing.
We have two questions around family. From Michelle, how has your family reacted to your books? Has it opened up conversations? And another attendee wants to know, Erika, I was wondering if you feel as a writer the responsibility to keep the family history, especially for the women that systemically haven't had a voice. And they say they love the memoir and thank you for writing it.
Okay, great. Family history. I'm sorry, what was the first one again?
The first question from Michelle was, how has your family reacted to your books? So that's one question. The other question around family is, what do you feel around keeping family alive through your writing, especially for folks who haven't had so much of a voice?
I think that family is something that I really care deeply about, and I respect my family greatly. I have a lot of admiration for my mother for, you know, making that bold choice to cross the border, and for my father for, you know, doing the same and working so hard. And so I wrote this book with love, you know, with I didn't intend in any way to you know, disparage anyone in my life. And so I feel so far that my family has been incredibly supportive. They're really proud of me. They really think you know, that I'm making a difference, and I feel really supported. And I never knew that that was possible. And so as far as the writing, it's very honest, but my family knows a lot of it. And so there you go. And I'm not really ashamed of it. And the second question was how to keep family alive. For me, family isn't just blood. It's a community of people that I have met throughout my life who make me a better person and who I have a close relationship to. And so for me, family is just like ever evolving, expanding. I think it's really important to find the people in your life who see you, who validate you, who make you feel, you know, alive. And yeah, that's something that I've been learning as I get older, is that I can choose who is in my proximity, you know, and that feels like such a powerful thing.
Thank you for that. We have several questions for both of you around tips and best practices for up and coming writers, especially Latinas, first gen. coming up in the industry. And a few folks want to know, how do you balance as you're getting started, like needing to work full time with your creativity and your process? So tips for aspiring writers from both of you, they'd love to know.
Erika?
I think you have more experience, so please.
All right, lower your overhead. Lower your overhead. Lower your overhead. That means if someone will give you a spare bedroom and all you have to do is babysit on Saturdays, do it. You know, take a season and go use your brother's guest bedroom and be the nanny. That's what I did. That's how I was able to write some of my best work and not spend too much money. I also moved to Texas, which is not my idea of paradise, to lower my overhead. And, you know, I had a day job, and then when I was going crazy, I would go to my brother's house in the country outside Chicago and stay in the guest room, or win a little award that would allow me to have the summer off. So you've got to lower your overhead and assume you'll never make any money. If you assume you'll never make any money, you won't be disappointed. But if you do earn something, you'll think, wow, gee, that's a cherry on the cake.
Yeah.
So you always have a very wide parachute. Make sure that you earn your own money, control your fertility, and number 3, don't complain when you don't have a social life. That's the universe giving you time to finish that next book. So solitude is sacred. Put it on a t-shirt, earn your own money, control your fertility, solitude is sacred.
Well, that's amazing. I think that is all true. And I would like to add that pursuing writing is a great idea if you love writing, the act of writing. You don't want to just get famous or whatever. It's not worth it. It's too hard. And, you know, it's better off, you're better off doing something else. So I think also read everything that you can. Just read. Yeah.
But don't steal it from bookstores. They're having a hard
No.
Go to the
I
library.
haven't done it since. I swear to God.
I think we have time for one more question, maybe from both of you, before I'll again drop the book link so we can make sure to get Erika's book. So following the question around writing, the audience really wants to know, for both of you, what authors inspired you? What books inspired you when you were growing up? What were you reading as children? And then besides Crying in the Bathroom, this gorgeous new memoir, what is currently on your bedside table? What is really enticing you now to read?
Right now, I'm rereading this wonderful book. I read it 2 times, and I went to your other books to prepare for this interview. But I love reading memoirs. So I'm reading the new Jean Rhys biography. I'm sorry. I love reading biographies and memoirs. And so I'm reading the biography of Andy Warhol by Bob Costello. I think that's how you pronounce his name. And the new Jean Rhys biography, I Used to Live There, I think it's called. And you know, I'm a big Jean Rhys fan. She gives me ánimo. She makes me want to write. I want to read the writers that make me feel like writing. And Erika, you do that when I see your work talking about things that I have never seen written about by people of color, by people of our economic roots. And, you know, so those are some of the books, but I just finished a really great one because I had to blurb it. And it's Manuel Muñoz's new book, The Consequences. It's coming out. It's just amazing. It's the kind of book that I can look at it and think, oh, why didn't I write this book? It's that good.
Okay, I need to get that.
Yes.
What am I reading? I just finished How to Be an Anti-Racist, which is just so good. I love him. I think this book is so important. And also there is a book that hasn't come out called Fatty Fatty Boom Boom that I'm reading right now about an Indian American woman, memoir about, you know, food and culture, and it's very, very interesting. And also, I would like to say, I have a list that I created for my students who asked for it. They wanted a list of books that I recommend, and I'm wondering where to put it. I think I'm going to put it on my website, and it's just a Google Doc that I keep adding to. So I will do that in the next.
And also, another good place is I always take a picture of the book I'm reading, post it, and I will post this with my puppy because I like when you put a dog. That's another. Put a dog next to the book you're reading. You don't have to be in there, but the dog must be there, and say what I'm reading. And that'll help to support other writers, especially writers of color that need all the help they can get.
Thank you for that tip.
Well, I hate to end. We could have this conversation for another hour. It's been delightful. The audience has been so warm and supportive. Everyone out there, please hurry over to Erika's website. I will be looking for that book list too. The link to get Crying in the Bathroom is in the chat column at the side. You might have to scroll to find it. Or you can visit us at politics-prose.com. Well, while you're there, feel free to check out our events calendar as well for everything else we've got coming up this summer and beyond. And from our shelves to yours, we hope you are out there staying safe, staying strong, and of course, staying well read. And to Erika L. Sánchez and Sandra Cisneros, we cannot thank you more. Thank you so much and have a great evening.
Thank you.
Good night, everyone.